This video is not a response to Nintendoland's video the way the guest video was a response to Sybil D's video. I had wrote this script all the way up till half through the Forgotten Land bit before that video happened. Also not originally in the script, someone pointed out that some of Morpho Knight's theme can be heard in the Egg Engine's map theme. Just something to think about. Now on to the main video. Influencers are annoying. When some big channel completely changes how a community thinks about something just because they're big is just the worst. You're probably wondering what the heck this has to do with Morpho Knight. Well, this guy named Nintendoland decided to make a lore video on Morpho Knight in Kirby in the Forgotten Land, and he can't even get Kirby characters' genders right, and he basically made the fandom split on whether Morpho Knight is either evil, neutral, or even a hero. Well, I'm here to tell you why Morpho Knight is 100% undeniably evil, as well as just explaining everything else surrounding him. As you've probably heard before, Morpho Knight started as an image in the concept art section for Meta Knight on the Kirby's Dream Collection book, the one that came with the game, but was confirmed by one of the devs that it was not a concept art of Meta Knight, but a boss from the cancelled Kirby GameCube game. Morpho Knight made his first actual appearance in Kirby Star Allies as Guest Star Allies mode, where a small butterfly lands on Galactonite's sword and vaporizes him. Then he appears as Morpho Knight. The common misinterpretation with this is that Morpho Knight had fused with Galactonite, which there is a little heart symbol that appears there when that happens, but like, hearts don't always mean good things in the Kirby world. Which is why he looks the way he does. This is not true. Instead, he gave Galactonite his death sentence and absorbed him. Through all of his pause descriptions, it is made quite clear that he's the one that casts judgment upon people, deciding whether they go to the underworld or whatever the heaven equivalent of the Kirby universe is. You may think that him being a judgment automatically makes him good, right? Well, let's think about Galactonite. He's very powerful and likes to battle people, but usually he is summoned for that, and we see him kill villains all the time, but never killing random people or destroying planets like Stardream says. He isn't really that evil, at least from what we know, but has also stated that the screams of pain / calls for help from Galactonite are what brought Morpho to him, so it might seem like he's putting him out of his misery, right? We'll think about it later. Moving on, it's important to note that the one character Morpho Knight cannot fight is Kirby. I've seen theories that Morpho Knight has a specific reason for fighting Kirby, but Morpho Knight will fight anyone from Dark Meta Knight to a random Broom Hatter as long as they're on this quest. A lot of people dismiss the whole thing as non-canon, but if you play any of the Wave 3 Dream Friends, you will see Highness sink into the ground of the altar, and in Heroes in Another Dimension, you see him rise back out of that same ground, so I'd say it's all likely canon. There is also Morpho Knight EX that appears when you play as the Mage Sisters, but I'm not really sure what to make of it. Their campaign seems to be another dimension leaking into the normal world, and Morpho Knight EX was just thrown in there because all the bosses had hard versions. One final thing of interest is that Morpho Knight's sprites use the word king in them, which says to me that Morpho Knight isn't just a being of judgment, but is the god of judgment and possibly the entire underworld. That's everything from Star Allies. What if Morpho Knight was with us the whole time? Obviously, Morpho Knight is the same butterfly that was in the cutscenes from since Return to Dreamland, but what if the butterflies in previous games, all the way back to Kirby's Dreamlands, were also Morpho Knight? Just something to think about. In Super Kirby Clash, Morpho Knight's helmet is called a Doom Helm, and the word Doom shows up multiple times. This made me think back to the Doomers, but I haven't found any further connection. Finally, in Kirby in the Forgotten Land, Morpho Knight appears again. For the first time, one of these mysterious knights appears in a non-canonically ambiguous mode. Morpho Knight comes in right before the battle with Forgo Soul and consumes Forgo, and appears exactly the same way we saw him last time, which deconfirms the fusion theory. There are a few important parallels between Galactonite and Forgo. Both have titles of extreme power, cheated death, well for Forgo it's only once but still counts, and are suffering and screaming for help. Most people like to focus on the last two details, of more evidence that I'm being good, and that cheating death is like against the rules of reality or something. But what about the first part? That's also important, but we'll get there later. An important detail is that Morpho Knight will summon Forgo's soul to attack you. Not only that, but he'll summon multiple of them at the same time. His soul is now completely under Morpho's control, to twist however he wants. The more important detail is that back in Star Allies, he summons a very similar attack. At first, I and many people thought these were just faceless, nameless souls, but with our new info, it's possible this is what Galactonite's face looks like, or even stranger, this could be what Galactonite's soul looks like, if that's even a thing, since the ones that Morpho summons look like Forgo's soul. Stuff like this is why I love Kirby lore so much. Sure, the bios give out a lot of important lore, but the visual clues that show up and then you just go, wait a minute, that's just the best thing. Isn't even something that helps reveal something huge about Galactonite, except that it kinda looks like Kirby's evil face. It's just something fans have wondered about for a long time, and now we might finally have an answer. Back to Morpho. He uses a lot of fire attacks in his fight, which connects him more to Hell, plus it's stated multiple times that he comes from the underworld. If he was just a god of judgment, why is he specifically from Hell? Shouldn't he be between both? As a side note, there's a whole Kirby manga that goes into depth about how the underworld works in the Kirby world, but I don't know much about it, so look into it more yourself. But one important thing that is mentioned is how there's multiple of these judgment butterflies, which is something I already thought was probably true. For some strange reason, Forgo was able to escape Morpho Knight's defeat, but we don't see the same thing happen with Galactonite. So is Forgo stronger than Galactonite? Well, Scorpion C made a video about Morpho Knight where he said there is a puff of smoke that looks just like Forgo's escaping, but I don't see it. Do any of you see it? Tell me if you do. Some people say that when Morpho Knight drops his scroll, it's him rewarding Kirby for beating him, and that he was just challenging Kirby. By this logic, that means the Beast Pack and Mind Control Deity also give rewards to Kirby for beating them. No, it's a common thing for bosses in games to give items on death. This isn't the boss gifting you their stuff. It's you taking the stuff from them forcefully upon defeat. But more importantly, it's implied by the description that it's probably the sword itself, rather than a blueprint. But it wasn't changed, because that will be a lot of unnecessary work. More importantly, the description of this ability says that the sword itself is what grants control over life and death. So it's possible that Morpho Knight is just a host or something. Also important, Kirby can summon the Forgo souls, showing that these souls don't actually go to the afterlife, but are rather slaves to the sword for all of eternity. Unless, of course, the sword is a direct gateway to the afterlife, and then it just summons them back. Finally, if we're to actually believe that this is the real sword and not a replica, that means Morpho Knight's reign of terror might already be over, and Kirby is the new god of judgment. The most important evidence for Morpho being pure evil comes to his figure description. It was drawn to Forgo dreams and feasts on the strongest souls it can find. Sure, he was drawn because of the cries of help, but he wasn't here to help, and he wasn't here just for Forgo. It says he feasts on the most powerful souls, not just one. He feasts upon Leon's soul pieces, and possibly even the Phantom bosses. It does call him a Dream Eater after all. He feeds on dreams and souls, so this place is pretty much an all-you-can-eat buffet for him. I've been calling Morpho Knight a him through the most of this video, but it actually refers to him as it, further suggesting that this thing is inhumane and more monster than person. One final thing is the bit of meta commentary it has. First, the figure description says, cast judgment upon final battles, which only the game itself can determine what a final battle is. unless it just means final battle of an adventure. This is still an oddly specific thing for him to just do on a regular basis. The two things so far he has destroyed are Galactonite and a Soul Boss, two common reoccurring things in Kirby games. Basically, this is HAL deciding that Galactonite and Soul Bosses have become overused and removing them from the game. Still, it behaves exactly like a Soul Boss, so I don't really know what the point of that was. The concept is new, I guess. And they do this using a character from a scrapped project, basically taking something that was gonna be thrown away, giving it new life, and having it take the spotlight of some of their most prized characters. In conclusion, Morpho Knight is an evil god of judgment that does not care to judge. All it cares is to kill and grow stronger. It was likely once a regular underworld butterfly that stalked Kirby, but when the old gods of the underworld were no more, it battled the other butterflies over kingship over the underworld and won. Morpho also acts for a stand-in for HAL getting rid of things that they feel have gotten repetitive. That's pretty much everything I can think of about Morpho Knight. This script has gone way longer than I ever would have expected. Like and subscribe for more ridiculously long Kirby lore videos.